Welcome to Dark Knight Films Reviews and another special ranking video. Tonight, I will be counting down my picks for the top 10 werewolf films. Now, for this list, I will not be going into specifics about the plots for these films because most of these I will do a review of them down the road, or I have already done a review of them on the channel. So, with that being said, let's begin our list. Coming in at number 10, we have Werewolf of London, released in 1935, directed by Stuart Walker, and starring Henry Hull, Warner Oland, and Valerie Hobson. Now, this is the oldest film on this list. I will already admit that to you. But it was one of the first really great werewolf films. Although I think most would consider Henry Hull's wolf character in this as more of a Jekyll and Hyde style character. But I just love the design of Henry Hull's werewolf. Now, his character is not the best of characters. But when he becomes the wolf, he really shines in this film. So that is why this film makes my list at number 10. Coming in at number 9, we have Ginger Snaps, released in 2001, directed by John Fawcett, starring Emily Perkins, Katharine Isabelle, and Mimi Rogers. Now, this one is one of those rare occasions where you get yourself a female werewolf in it. And Katharine Isabelle is super hot when she's making that transition into the werewolf. Now, her werewolf look, I'm not fully a fan of because she doesn't have a lot of fur on her. And you would think a female werewolf would have more hair than even a regular male werewolf. But in this case, the werewolf is pretty hairless. So that was a little bit weird, but the design of the werewolf is pretty damn good in this film. All right, so coming in at number 8, we have Full Eclipse, released in 1993, directed by Anthony Hickox, starring Mario Van Peebles, Patsy Kensit, and Bruce Payne. Now, Mario Van Peebles is always a cool actor in a film, and Patsy Kensit, much like Katharine Isabelle in my last pick, is extremely hot in her werewolf kind of vibe with her werewolfish face, almost like Katharine Isabelle in that transition period. But none of these characters, other than Bruce Payne, actually turn into a full-fledged werewolf. And Bruce Payne is a kick-ass villain in this. And I've always loved him as an actor, and he's really typecast as villains for the most part in his career. But there's a reason for that. He's really good at these villains, and he is damn good as the villain in this film. Coming in at number 7, we have Dog Soldiers, released in 2002, directed by Neil Marshall, starring Sean Pertwee, Emma Cleesby, and Kevin McKidd. Now, I've already reviewed this one on my channel. As I mentioned before, I will mention it if I have. So if you wanted to actually see my full-fledged review of this one, check it out. But as I said in my review, this is one of the most underrated and most awesome werewolf movies ever. The designs of the werewolves is badass, and you have a pack of them. There's not just one. And I think this works in it. They're against soldiers. So, and they are soldiers themselves, the werewolves. So it's a very unique story. All right, so coming in at number 6, we have The Howling. Released in 1981, directed by Joe Dante, starring Dee Wallace, Christopher Stone, Dennis Duggan, and Belinda Balaski. Now, most people would probably rank this film higher on their lists, and I've got it at the midway point. But something that always brings this one down for me. Now, back when I was a kid and saw this, if I was rating it, I would have probably put it right up there at the top spots. But as an adult with this film, I mean, it has a lot of things that have not aged well. And to be honest, some of them probably were not good from the start. I'm looking at you, Transformation at Night. Overall, the group of werewolves in this town, it kind of worked with Salem's Lot to me. But when you take that and do it with werewolves, a community of werewolves in this town, it's kind of weird. Now, the one thing that this film does have in it is an excellent transformation, although it is kind of wasted in the sequence that it's in. And I think the character of the serial killer that is the werewolf is completely wasted by the end of this film because of the whole town community being the focal point of the film and not him. I think if this would have been about this serial killer as the main focus of the story being this werewolf, I think The Howling probably would have worked better for me. Coming in at number 5, we have Stephen King's Silver Bullet. Released in 1985, directed by Dan Attias, starring Gary Busey, Corey Haim, Everett McGill, and Megan Follows. Now, this one is such a unique werewolf film. I mean, it has a very cool Corey Haim who is in a wheelchair. I mean, how defenseless can the poor character that knows this werewolf exists be, being in a wheelchair? That's what makes this one so unique. And his relationship with his sister, played by Megan Follows, and his relationship with his uncle, played by Gary Busey. Yes, the werewolf effects near the end do kind of bring this one down, and that's why it's not a little bit higher on my list. But overall, this one is one hell of a werewolf film. Coming in at number 4, we have Big Bad Wolf, released in 2006, directed by Lance W. Dreesen, starring Trevor Duke, Richard Tyson, and Kimberly J. Brown. Now, most people wouldn't put this film on a list like this, but I always like a story where you have a father figure character in a person's life comes in and is suspected by the child of the family. In this case, he's not really a child. He's a teenager and everything with Trevor Duke. But Richard Tyson is playing this boyfriend to his mother that has just married him, has become his father now, and he suspects that he was this werewolf that killed off a bunch of his friends at this cabin. And it's very similar to a film called Scream for Help and another film that I really love called The Snorkel. And anytime you mix those kind of things with a werewolf story, it's very, very interesting. The big difference between this one and that is this has a male in it, as whereas the previous two that I mentioned had females. But the final look of the werewolf is more the traditional Wolfman kind of a look, and I really enjoy that look for the werewolf for this particular film. Very well done. Coming in at number 3, we have Bad Moon, released in 1996, directed by Eric Red, starring Michael Paré, Muriel Hemingway, and Mason Gamble. Now, this film, I mean, you have the always good Michael Paré. I have always liked him as an actor, and to have him in this film playing the brother character to Muriel Hemingway, who has just been attacked by a werewolf, his girlfriend was murdered, and he comes in and he's trying to get closure, and he knows that he is wanting to end this curse that is on him, but he doesn't really want to tell his sister about what is going on. He's apprehensive about this. But the family dog, Thor, which was the name of the book that this is based on, knows that he is a werewolf and is trying to protect the family. And Mason Gamble is really great as the little kid that owns the... Now, Mason Gamble, you might recognize him. He also played Dennis the Menace with Walter Matthau, and I liked him in both these films. I liked him in Dennis the Menace, and I liked him in this. But very, very well done film, well directed by Eric Red, and that's why it makes my list this high. Now, the transformation sequence for Michael Paré may not be that great, but the design of this werewolf in this film is one of the best ever. Excellent design of the werewolf. Coming in at number 2, we have The Wolfman, released in 1941, directed by George Wagner, starring Lon Chaney Jr., Claude Rains, and Evelyn Ankers. Now, this is the second oldest film on this list, and I know most people probably wouldn't have expected The Wolfman to be higher than The Howling, but this is my list. If you don't agree with this, I mean, that's fine. We have our own opinions. If you don't like my list, go down below and let me know what your list is. But for me, The Wolfman from 1941 is such a great werewolf film just because of the mythologies that it puts in for the character and how well our lead, played by Lon Chaney Jr., is portrayed, and his relationship with Evelyn Ankers is excellent, as well as his relationship with his father, Claude Rains' character. And the film is just so well done. Yes, you could look at the special effects on the transformations and say, that's outdated, that looks old, or whatever, and that's corny, or whatever. But I don't care. This film is still one of the best werewolf films ever made, only to be surpassed by one other, in my opinion. And that one is... coming in at number 1, we started with A Werewolf of London, and now we are ending with An American Werewolf in London, 1981, directed by John Landis, starring David Naughton, Jenny Agutter, and Griffin Dunne. Now, this is the perfect example of taking comedy and mixing it with horror and not overdoing it, doing it in a perfect blend where it just works. John Landis can be iffy in this kind of stuff, but for this film, he did hit it in a perfect tone, I believe. I love David Naughton in this lead character in this. He is just excellent. He's super likable, very similar to the Wolfman with Lon Chaney Jr. in there. And his relationship with Jenny Agutter, you could also attribute to, feeling a lot like that relationship between him and Evelyn Ankers. So, the best friend with Griffin Dunn getting killed early and revisiting him as this decomposing, looking worse and worse as the film goes on. That is just an excellent thing. And he is just trying to warn him that he is going to become a werewolf. And it is just such a great film. And that is why it makes my list. And on top of that, it has one of the most badass transformation sequences ever in a werewolf movie, ever. So, I mean, if Bad Moon had taken this approach to Michael Pere's transformation, it could have been in league with it, trying to compete with the #1 spot, because I actually have already said that I do love Bad Moon. But that transformation sequences does bring it down up below this one, because this has got one of the greatest transformation sequences ever. But what do you guys think of my list? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know what your list is down below. And please be respectful. And if you like this video, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to click that bell icon so you can be notified about future videos just like this one. And while you're by the subscribe button, click that join button and become a Dark Knight fan. As a Dark Knight Fan Plus member, you have access to an area on the channel right now where you can post a movie, TV series, or ranking video that you want me to cover on this channel. And when I do that video, it will go up for all Plus members to view prior to it coming up, available for everyone else. And then I will put another post up, so it's not just a one-time thing. So if you want to get interactive, now's your chance.
And if you missed last week's ranking video, check out the link above. And if you missed any of our other ranking videos, check out this playlist and get caught up.